to constantly try to form my own opinion about things and to continue to respect both sides of my heritage. You know what I mean? Like not to be overly reverent to the white side or to be overly reverent to the black side, or to look at either of them as a down. You know what I mean? Like just to keep trying to analyze where I fit and how I felt about that.
That's a good point you make because you're coming from a perspective that a lot of us doesn't have. For example, you go out with your mother and the world views the two of you one way, and then consequently you're viewing the world in reaction to how they're viewing you. Then when you go out with your father,
Hmm.
the world is viewing you as says, you know what, we see the connection here. They view the two of you one way, and then your view is in reaction to them. And it's good that you mentioned that excuse me, it's good that you mentioned that your parents' interaction when you're around was supportive as well, right? Because I know you make the joke that your mother was more confrontational than you are,
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
kind of stood up, right? Because humans, when a situation is uncomfortable, will find our own way to cope with it. For example, they'll say that, oh, this can't be your mother, this is your girlfriend,
Hmm.
because in their mind they want to cope with it because maybe they're not it's easier for them to accept you two are dating than it is for the two of you to actually be family,
Hmm.
right? Is that something you saw as you continued to get older, or was that more so when you were just with the two of them at a younger age?
I think there's several factors to that. One, and I didn't mention this before. I grew up in a very small town in Illinois, in the Midwest, in the United States. So that shaped part of that too, because again, I'm not trying to talk bad about small towns, but I am saying that small towns don't necessarily see as much diversity sometimes as other towns do. And so I grew up, we moved away, and then we got to towns where there's a lot more mixed children around. There was a lot more of that, and it became a lot more readily available. Then also, I think that there was a lot of work that was done as a collective in the American psyche through the 80s and 90s, where again we started to see these things on TV. We started to be more familiar with mixed race children and everything like that. Obviously, culminating with President Barack Obama, who is mixed as well. So I think it did get easier in that sense that the world was more accepting and understood it a lot more. So those questions became less and less frequent, although they still existed. And I also think that I became better at describing it and becoming better at recognizing what was going on because, and I've talked about this before. There's a face people make, and I know what they're about to say when they make this face, and I don't know how. I don't know. It's just I've seen it so many times. I know it's about to happen, but then they make this face and they ask me, "What are you?" You know what I mean? Like they say that, and then what they're asking is, "Hey, what's your ethnic background? What's your like familial structure or whatever stuff like that?" But it's just a weird way, and it's always that phrasing. For whatever reason, they always phrase it that way. They always say, "What are you?" And I'm like, that's first of all, it's dehumanizing to say it that way. That's a really weird way to say that. You wouldn't say, hey, I mean, I wouldn't look at you and go, like, hey, what are you? I'd be like, oh, you're where your people from? What I got, however I would say it. I would say it in a lot of different ways. I wouldn't say it that way. But so anyway, so it became more of a question of who I was as an individual and less of who I was when I was with my parents. You know what I mean? And so the world got better in that way, both, like I said, moving away from that city and then also just the world becoming more open to it. And as we saw more and more of those representations in media and everything like that, it just got better. So I think it's a lot better for children these days. But I do think there's still pressure on multiracial children to pick a side, as they say. You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to go out there and represent yourself as black or represent yourself as whatever, you know what I mean? And then you have people like, say, take Mariah Carey. If Mariah Carey did not own the fact that she was multiracial, she probably could pass for white in a lot of circles, you know what I mean? And so I think there's still a lot of self-analysis that the multiracial children have to do as they continue to find their way in the world. And a lot of them, and I don't shame this for anybody for this, right? But a lot of them do choose to fully represent as black because it's easier. Because the black community is far more accepting of that answer. Let me say it this way: the black community is far more accepting of you as a multiracial child than the white community would be. And so for that reason, a lot of people just go, I'm black. Well, why even do all this work to try to do all this stuff? I'm just going to be black. And they'll mention it. They still don't deny that they have white parentage or anything like that or cut their parents out of their life. But it's just easier to represent themselves in the world as a black person. So for me, I continue to try to make sure that I represent myself as a multiracial individual while not being ashamed of my blackness. There is no shame that I am black. And so I'm not doing an OJ here where I'm just trying to deny my blackness or anything. It's more so important to me to recognize that One, there's certain privileges, when it comes to being multiracial because of my fair skin. Like I said, colorism is a real thing that affects a lot of people. So I have to acknowledge that I have that privilege. And two, I don't want to diss my mother like that. Like, my mother was my primary influence growing up. I have a lot of her features, even though obviously with the melanin, you wouldn't see it as readily, but I got her dimples, you know what I mean? Like my nose is shaped like hers, like all that type of stuff. So it doesn't feel right to me to just try to cut that out and act like that doesn't exist, So I think that it's shaped completely how I see the world, but also how I view myself. And it also just makes me very much continue to think around things in a lot of different ways. So I'm very thankful for that experience and that growing up that way.
Was it a because it sounds like you fully embraced the journey and you've come out of it. But was it easy? Was it an easy journey for you, or was there like peaks and valleys as you're coming to the point where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. There's peaks and valleys. You know what I mean? There's times where, so let's say this too. I didn't necessarily have the best, it still don't really to this day have the best relationship with my father. And that's not uncommon for people in general. You have different relationships with your parents, whatever that happens. But what's interesting from my perspective is that my father is also the one who gave me my blackness. He's also the representation as it relates to me, to my blackness. You know what I mean? So if I have a bad relationship with him, sometimes that carried over to my own blackness. And I saw that. So I had to deal with that. And then I also had to deal with, because I was trying to represent myself as mixed and I wanted to continue to analyze that, I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know how to act in a lot of situations, because when you're younger, I think we're all trying to take cues from either what we see on TV or what we see with our friend groups and all this type of stuff of how we should behave. We're trying to see how we fit in. And so we're not as confident and able to just be, you know what I mean? Just be who Brandon was. Don't even worry about black, white, none of that. Just be Brandon, right? So I was constantly either trying too hard to be black or trying to be too hard white, whatever it was. And there's just a lot of peaks and valleys trying to really analyze who I was and just figuring it out. And then there was also those moments where I would get to a place where I would feel like I'm okay. I'm good. I know who I am and everything. And then, I get a call on the phone and like, hey, you're going to die, N-word. You know what I'm saying? So like it always brings you back to a different place, that you always have to deal with all these different things. That's why I'm saying, like, I think it took a long time for me to be completely okay with the realities of all of that I am. You know what I mean? Like, without leaning too hard to one side or the other. I have some tendencies that I get from Black culture. I have some tendencies that I get from being mixed. I have some things that are just uniquely me. They're all part of what makes me me. You know what I mean?
And you made a good point that when you mentioned the relationship with your father, and I don't know, I know many people that are multiracial, not necessarily black, white, could be black, white, pink, purple, whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
there's two parents from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, so on and so forth. And it seems that a number of children that if they don't have a good relationship with one parent, doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be a bad one, but if it's not as strong as one parent, they seem to move away from that race, that
Yeah.
religion, that culture, not because they have an issue with it, is because there's something that's preventing them from having the relationship they want with that parent, and they view that parent as a representation of everything that they're mixed with. Do you find that to be true?
Uh, I don't know if it's a conscious decision, but I definitely think it happens. But I also would say that it's hard for a parent who is not of that culture, or race, religion, whatever it is, to also give you that knowledge that comes with being that race, religion, or culture. So one of the things that I am very thankful for is that my mother was not oblivious to the fact she was raising mixed children. And that's not always the case with parents. A lot of them just try to raise them like you're any other kid, and they don't teach you certain situations about being black. I mean, my mom did. My mom talked to me about, how police officers might see me, how the world might see me, how people might treat me, and all that type of stuff. She was very cognizant of the fact that we were mixed race children. And to that point, she would even choose like what churches she would take us to based upon that as well. She's like, I'm not putting my children in a place where they're going to experience prejudice and racism and things like that. So I give her a lot of props for that, because I don't know how she knew to do that, but she did. And so I think that helped out with a lot of my own personal development, because I wasn't in a situation where my blackness was completely just cast aside because my mother herself wasn't black. You know what I mean? So I think that helped a lot. I think my mother consistently made it an effort to try to show me Black experiences. You know, she had Black movies. We would go and hang out with Black people. She wasn't like just putting me in a white world and saying, hey, figure that shit out. Sorry, I keep swearing. I apologize for that. But she was
No,
like,
that's okay. It's all, you know what? It's the passion. So I love it. Keep going.
yeah. But like, so I think that helps a lot. But I think when you're going back to what you were saying, that's not always the case, because you're talking about interpersonal relationships at the same time. My mother did not have a good relationship with my father. She hated the man, right? So it could be easy for a parent to go, because I hate this person, I hate what they are. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily in a racist way, but in a way that you're not going to do this because your father did that. Not because Black people do that, but because your father did that. And so she was never that way. She let me, again, try to experience that journey and try to help me along it without trying to, at the same time, she's like, this simply something she can't tell me, because she does not know. She doesn't have that knowledge base. So I think that's what helped me. But I know with a lot of children, that's not the case, because like you said, these are two people. And think about people who get like nasty divorces or nasty breakups or whatever else, you know, and then you add children into that. And then you add what that does to the children because of the differences you'll see. Like I said, they try to make one parent a bad guy or a bad person or whatever. And I was just very fortunate that my mother wasn't that way, with the specific aspects of my father that could lead me to think about it from a Black angle, you know?
And that's the beauty of parenting, right? Like, you have a parent that's willing to walk the journey with you. And let's be quite honest, it probably wasn't an easy journey for her,
Mm,
right? Because she's taking you in areas to make you feel comfortable, make the children feel comfortable, that, and she's probably learning as she's going along, right? Because as you mentioned, this is maybe a community that she's not 100% familiar with. She's familiar enough because she knew what to do,
mm,
right? But there's a number of people that may not know what to. They're like, yeah, I have a child with this person, but this isn't me. Let me raise them in a way that I was raised. And they're totally taking away one half of what they could be, right? And I think your mother, as you mentioned, deserves a tremendous amount of respect for walking you down that journey, and not only walking you down it, she walked with you.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, when you're a kid, you don't understand that. You don't recognize that. But now as a full grown adult, and then also seeing what other mixed race children, there's a rapper, his name's Logic, or well, his rap name is Logic. It's not his real name, but and he talks about how his mom was racist, even though she gave birth to a mixed race child. She was racist. She would call him the N-word. She would like do all these other things. I'm like, and so to see that was possible and see that was a potential outcome, and you really start looking back at the things you went through, and you're like, oh wow, you're like, yeah, I was really fortunate that I was able to get these gifts from a person who actually was compassionate and had just the wherewithal to understand that, to understand her children's place in the world was not the same as her place in the world. That they were going to experience things differently, and she needed to try to prepare them for that the best she could. You know, so it's really crazy just looking back on it, like, because my mother had me when she was 18 years old. Just graduated high school, you know, unwed, didn't go to college or anything like that. And so I don't know how she came to all the conclusions and the things that she did. And I know that I wouldn't have at that age. So I'm all that much more impressed the older I get, because my mom, when I was graduating high school and going through that stuff, whatever, she's my age now, you know, and I just like, I couldn't even imagine having a kid at that age and who was doing the things I was doing and who's saying the things I was saying, you know what I mean? And like just doing what she did. It blows my mind.
I know you touched on the military life, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
that you're in the military. How was that experience? Because I have a lot of respect for people who join the military, because it doesn't, from the images and the people I've talked to, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to be an easy life
Yeah.
at the very least. So how was that for you? How was that experience going through the military for you?
For me, I have a saying, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just I have an episode going up tonight with one of my former military friends, and I was just watching it, you know, going through it, editing and everything. So I have this saying like fresh in my head, and what it is for me is that the military does not develop character; it reveals it. And so what it taught me about myself is that I am capable of a lot more things than I think I am, but I am also I can find moments of weakness and then lean into them if I am not put in the right situation. So, going back to what I said before, it gives you a lot of opportunities to really analyze yourself if you take them. A lot of us will avoid them because it's really painful to look at yourself and look at your flaws and go, man, I can't believe that's who I am. I need to work on that. So for me, the military was great because what it did is gave me an immense amount of opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. It changed my life in so many beautiful ways, including the wherewithal to go, When I was doing my second enlistment, I'm like, this is my last enlistment. I need to get out. I am not for the military lifestyle anymore. It's detracting more than it's giving me. And also, I'm not the person the military needs. At some point, I'm going to start taking more than I'm giving, and I don't need to do that either to something that's helped my life so much. So it really just gave me a great experience of dealing with people that I never would have met before, from like all different walks of life. You meet people who have so many different perspectives, and it teaches you how to just exist in that world with those people and then work with them and to understand them and to not just take the experience you had growing up and then force it upon other people. So it's very tough lifestyle. At any given moment, you can be sent anywhere around the world, away from your family, away from your friends, away from everything, put in harm's way. There's a lot of stress with it day to day. And then it's the only job that I'm aware of, or one of the only jobs I should say that I'm aware of, where I can't just quit. You know what I mean? Like if I tried to quit the military, I'm AWOL. I'm going to get dishonorable discharge. And I'm going to get put in federal prison. You know what I mean? So like you really have to stick things out. It also pushes you in that way, because you're like, I can't just leave this. I don't have that opportunity. I need to do things in such a way that that I can prepare myself to leave in 3 to 4 years. And so you don't just get to do the type of spontaneous behavior that you may see some other people do. And I think that's really develops you a lot, because now you understand patience. You understand how things aren't necessarily as bad as they seem, and that you can get through this. And so you can just develop a lot more of that personality than I think the average person would have.
And I like how you put it, that you said that it reveals character and doesn't develop it, because there's some people that the army may the army lifestyle seems like it's very disciplined, right? Very methodical, very revealing. And you're right, there's some people that they're made for, right? They're built for that lifestyle. And I look at like military officers, army, navy seals, whatever the whatever officer, whatever branch they are, and it's like it reminds me of the main, the most strongest definition of like what a family community is,
Mhm.
right? Because you have people, like how many of us can honestly say that they would die for their friends or for their family, right? But you're in a situation when you're in the military, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you may be in that situation where you have to go save your comrade, you have to save your officer, you have to save your colleague, you have to save your friend. And I love that it reveals that in people, that someone is willing to go the distance, whatever that distance may be, up into their life for you. Is that an accurate experience of what the army is, of what the military is?
Sure. And so just to clarify for anybody, so I don't get in trouble with my brethren later, but I was Air Force. That's the branch that I was in. And I didn't serve in combat positions, but to your point, that's what you may be called upon to do, because as I was just saying before, I had that podcast and we were kind of going through some of these things. If you get sent to Afghanistan, those mortars are coming over the wall. It doesn't matter what your job is. You're in a live active zone where they're trying to kill you. And that happens all the time. And that's Bagram Air Force Base is the biggest one, but there's a lot of other what they call FOBs, forward operating bases, that are much smaller and much more vulnerable to attacks. And I was supposed to go to Afghanistan back in 2012, but I broke my leg, so I couldn't go, unfortunately. But anyways, the point of saying all that is to say that I think every military member has thought about the fact that they may be called upon to die, essentially. Not the military is not trying to kill you, but they may put you in a situation where death is a possibility, where it isn't a potential outcome. And because of that, you have a lot of people who are so stressed that they end up taking their own lives. The military has, I think they say 22 veterans a day on average commit suicide. So there's a lot of things that go into the military lifestyle and the stress that it puts under you. And because of that, a lot of the people in the military end up with a very dark sense of humor. So like we joke about a lot of really terrible things, because in the reality, like you said, we may be called upon to die for one another at some point. And I think one of the things that's cool about that is, well, cool is not a great word to say, but one of the things interesting about that is you also start to understand people at a more like foundational level, that it's not that you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're a dude from Alabama, you're a fan of this team, whatever, like the things that we try to like put upon people, that you still would serve, you're serving next to this person. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to some of those choices you may have to make, none of that matters. you're a human being, you're a person who's out here trying to do something, and I'm trying to do something. And if it came to it, we may have to make some tough decisions, and you may save my life, I may save yours. And so you feel that connectedness, but it also at the same time, you have a lot of, like you said, it's a family, and families fight. Families fight all the time, and that is no different in the military. You have tons of infighting because of that. But you, at the end of the day, most of the time you get through it, and you are able to come out the other side and focus on the mission and focus on what's really important, with some understanding that those things that we really pick at each other about aren't nearly as important what we're actually trying to accomplish.